Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Reich. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Louisiana, and today I wanted to talk about some of the best tools you can use to automate your books. As an accountant, as a CPA, I spend a lot of time working on financials with my clients, and they're always asking, how can we save time? How can we cut back on labor? How can we cut back on payroll? How can we cut back on mistakes? My answer is always this. It's to automate away the stuff that you don't need to be looking at. You need to let your accounting platform run as wide open as it can within reason, always within reason, and then try and find the exceptions. Find the one-offs, exceptions to the rules, the things that aren't the norm, and then focus on those. That way, the computer is talking to your bank. It says, "Oh, I've seen this. It's a gas station receipt from Chevron. It's $85 because you filled up your work truck. It needs to go to fuel expense." Stuff like that, like really rudimentary things that accounting platforms probably figured out with rules-based logic 10 years ago. And so we need to automate as much as we can, is what I tell them. And I have a certain set of tools that I use to do that. And so today I want to talk about some of the best automation platforms out there, not necessarily accounting platforms, just tools and apps that can automate away a lot of stuff. And that's where I'm going to start with Puzzle. So I like Puzzle because it automatically generates financials and can do reconciliations as long as you've got your bank feeds hooked up to it. So Puzzle's going to look at those bank feeds. It's going to say, what have I coded this to in the past? It uses AI. It's one of the kind of the lead cutting edge platforms that uses AI, in my opinion. And then it says, I've seen this before. It's similar to this amount. It occurs around this time every month. Maybe it's this vendor. I'm going to book it to meals with clients, or I'm going to book it as revenue, or I'm going to book it here. And so it'll start sending those things through that it usually sees. And then if it's not sure, it'll flag an exception. You are then able to jump in, review those exceptions, book it to where it's supposed to go. You've got automatically generated financial statements, which is wonderful. You can also use simultaneous views on cash and accrual. You can toggle back and forth. I feel like that's pretty standard in a lot of platforms, but it is a nice to have if you want to look at the cash basis. And then it's got direct integrations with Brex, for instance, got direct integrations with Gusto, if I'm not mistaken, and it can connect to most bank accounts with Plaid. It's got a really seamless user interface. It's easy to pick up, easy to learn. It's just everything flows. It's got tons of resources within it, lots of technical accounting features. Overall, I have no problem recommending Puzzle to my clients. They're like, how do I get away from QuickBooks? And we'll be there in a second into it. Don't worry. I usually recommend Puzzle. So some of the trade-offs, you're going to have to hand key those exceptions, obviously, but over time there will be less and less of them. And then odd workflows, or if you've got like legacy systems like spreadsheets and stuff, if you can't find a way to push it over into Puzzle, you may have some hiccups. So definitely be thinking about that. That's not true just for Puzzle. It's going to be true for most of the platforms on this list, but just a heads up. So the next one that I want to talk about, which actually is kind of surprising, is QuickBooks. I dunk on QuickBooks all the time. It's because they're so big, everyone uses them, and I know what their flaws are because I've been using them for a long time. But within the last couple of weeks, Intuit actually pushed out a pretty good AI platform overhaul, and it looks good. It seems to work. And so overall, I'm kind of actually, dare I say, impressed with how it looks and how it performs. So there's some workflow automations in there. You don't ever have to leave the platform to go send an email to the bookkeeper. You can build invoice approval workflows, due date reminders, all within the app. And then it's also going to have some rules-based logic on if you've got your bank feed hooked up, what are my expenses, what's hitting the balance sheet, what's my interest expense, stuff like that. QuickBooks Online is going to have those suggestions, and it's going to learn as you continue to code, so it can also generate financial statements. And then there are some newer approval features that came with the last round of updates, like multi-condition approvals for bills and POs, but we typically don't use that just because a lot of my businesses, it goes from bookkeeper to owner signs the check. So it's pretty small, but there are some trade-offs that need to be discussed. First, if you're setting a bunch of rules on how to code transactions, they can get hairy quick. It can start to flag a lot of exceptions if you don't have those really dialed in. And then the other thing is QuickBooks is expensive. It's expensive for what you get, in my opinion. Yeah, it works for a lot of businesses, and so Intuit says I have all these customers, I can charge whatever I want, and it doesn't matter if a couple cancel. I've got some clients that are paying almost $800 or $900 a month for their Intuit suite because they have payroll and they have the premium and they have 35, 40 employees. It stacks up quick. So get ready to pay, especially if you want some of these automation features. It's pay to play, and you're going to find that to be true for just about every platform. All right, the next one I want to talk about is a core favorite. It is probably the biggest competitor to QuickBooks, in my opinion, and that's going to be Xero. So the first thing about Xero is you can mass code bank lines. Like you can select a bunch and then book them all to like vehicle expense or something if you're maintaining a fleet of vehicles. That's really nice whenever you're having to clean up, or like maybe you've neglected your books for a couple months. I'm an accountant, I would never do that. But it's really nice to be able to quickly like pick all those up, set them, send them through, especially if they're from the same vendor, similar amount, similar dates. You can also use that to fix like errors if somebody's been booking the wrong, like if they've been using the wrong bank text and booking it to the wrong expense account, you can pick them all up and recode them at once. So in my opinion, like the automation for Xero really does happen at the bank reconciliation screen. There is a ton of features to be able to clean up. There's lots of rules-based options whenever things are being pushed over from the bank feed. You're just going to save a lot of time there. It's not as robust, in my opinion, as the new QuickBooks update, where you can stay in the platform and do everything all at once. But that's okay because they each have their strengths, and I really don't mind Xero. However, you need to think about if you are migrating from another platform to Xero, it may take a couple weeks for you to get all your rules back in place. I mean, I worked with Xero, and we had over 52 bank accounts because each state entity needed 2 bank accounts. And so it took a long time to set up all the rules for those bank accounts. And so just keep that in mind. If you are migrating, it's going to be tough to set everything up quickly. So if you are using Xero for automation, go ahead and bake that into your timeline of implementation. To me, it's best for folks who value speed in the bank rec screen, just like people who value automation overall with Puzzle are going to be happy, and then people who are familiar with QuickBooks, they're going to be happy with their QuickBooks suite and paying that high monthly premium. So the next one I want to talk about is one that doesn't get covered as often, but I really do think it's worth mentioning just because the breadth of offerings is definitely there, and that's Zoho. So Zoho is similar to Xero in that there's a lot of rules-based matchmaking. Like you can trigger actions based on criteria across records, and then you can use schedules, and then it's automatically going to be pushed to the financial statements. So that's really handy for approvals. It's handy for follow-ups without having to leave the Zoho Books software suite. There have been some updates in 2025, so that's going to be like administrative improvements with rules. So a good example would be when the discount on an invoice exceeds the sales tax, make sure to push that to a person because that means something is going to be off of that invoice. Maybe there's an error, and so it's going to flag it, and then it's going to need to be reviewed by the accountant, bookkeeper, controller, whatever have you. The drawback to Zoho and its automation is that it can get complicated quick. It's obviously not ideal unless you're already using the Zoho suite of products. They have HR products, they have compliance products, they have basically, if you want to run your business, you can use Zoho. But it's definitely punches above its weight on automation. It's really great if you've got a lot of repeatable processes that are tedious, and then you can just let their enterprise suite help you run your business in full. You don't have to piecemeal everything together. Everything's under one umbrella, and it's easy to run it all from the same place. The next one is actually the first one that's not an accounting software. So I wanted to throw Melio in here because it's an accounts payable tool. And so if you're trying to automate a ton of stuff, maybe it's not all under one umbrella. It's okay to use multiple softwares to ultimately accomplish the end goal, right? So I like Melio because it does have a sync with QuickBooks. So you won't ever have to export a CSV and then upload it to your accounting system if you're using a bill pay platform. It just syncs with QuickBooks. I do appreciate that. It keeps the subledger clean, keeps your bank feeds clean. It's got a ton of reports, so if you do have an issue, you can quickly run a bunch of reports, and you or your accountant can try and deduce, oh, this is where we went wrong. We started coding things wrong on 0915. There was a mistake. Somebody accidentally miskeyed something. You can find your reports, correct your rules, send it through. And then it's also really good because you can do, similar to QuickBooks, there's a lot of workflow approvals within the app. You don't have to leave. It's set your rules. They're automatic. You can route bills for sign-off, schedule ACH or card payments, let it sync, and then you never have to go and look at the application again. You just kick it and let it go. However, you need to pay attention. This is not an accounting platform. This is a bill pay platform. And so if you need something like AR automation, they do have accounts receivable. In my opinion, it's not as automated as like everything's going to be under one house, like Puzzle would be. So you may need to either stack another AR solution or make sure that your accounting software has the necessary AR module that can automate as much of that as possible. The other thing is, for me, if you need a bunch of controls, if you're a pretty big business, multiple layers of approval, you need document routing to different bookkeepers, accounts payables, people who are doing purchase orders may not be in the same location as the people receiving invoices and receiving the goods. Melio is going to get bogged down quick. So if you are running a larger business with some complex needs, do consider that before you sign a year-long contract with them. But overall, it's a great tool for helping to automate out accounts payable. The final one also punches above its weight class, but you are going to pay for that privilege. This is Bill, formerly known as Bill.com. It's similar to Melio, actually very similar, but I think it's more targeted towards mid-sized companies. Their pricing is reasonable, and like I've used Bill.com with companies that are sending out over 800 invoices a month, and for that privilege, I think it was like $500 to $700. I can't remember what that was. It was a couple of years ago. So their enterprise pricing does stack up pretty quick. You can get reasonable pricing if you're just a small business. And so that is something to consider. It's relatively fair. But I like Bill because you can upload your documents. It's going to use OCR to figure out who it was to, what it was for, the amount, the date. You select when you want to pay, if you want to do batch payments, and away you go. And then it spits it out over to QuickBooks, and that's it. You don't have to cut checks. You don't have to stuff envelopes. You don't have to write addresses, put stamps on them. It just, Bill will handle it all for you. And so when you pair Bill with a platform like Puzzle or a platform like QuickBooks, you have a really powerful ensemble. And that's why I wanted to include some applications in this video that talks about automation that weren't necessarily just accounting platforms. Like everywhere plays its part. Every piece plays its part. So you really truly want to automate away a lot of that tedious work, make sure to think about optimizing an entire tech stack. Use Bill, use the AI within Puzzle, use the different modules. Like it's all there. So it's obviously going to be best for kind of, in my opinion, mid-sized companies. If you want like good audit trails, if you want audit trails that are going to be kept for 6, 7, 10 years, and you don't want to blow your budget, Bill makes sense. So if you really want to automate out as much as possible, it's my opinion, start with a good, strong, rules-based accounting system that's going to learn your business, i.e. like Puzzle or QuickBooks. I really recommend Puzzle for that just because it's got that sleek UI. It's a little bit cheaper. Actually, it's a lot cheaper than QuickBooks. Everyone just runs into it because that's what they know. And then maybe pair it with a platform like Bill, or maybe pair it with a platform like Melio. Get an accounts receivable module if you really want to be hands-off. And then build out that tech stack. Make it to where you can close your books in hours, not days. Really pay attention to kind of, what you're after in your business and let it go from there. So anyway, guys, these are some of my top apps for automation. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed putting it together for you. I would definitely lean towards doing a two-pronged approach, using AI-powered rules-based automation, pair it with another like Bill or Melio, and then put those two together, marry them, and watch the work disappear. And now you're only having to review the exceptions and one-offs. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.